Shir Torah Daf Yomi Daf Tezayin Amud Gimel. So this mimer called Lashon Admor Nishmas Eidin Ba'atzmai, which is a mimer that Alter Rebbe wrote for himself, meaning all the mimarim were written by the Tzemach Tzedek and the Maharil and the Midler Rebbe and other Chasidim, whereas this mimer the Alter wrote himself, so he wrote it very, very bekitzer. So it's not like Tanya, where the Alter Rebbe explains every single thing that he's saying. Here, he's writing notes, like Rishimus. It's like the Alter Rebbe is writing Rishimus for himself. So it's very hard to read it. So Baruch Hashem, we have a mimer from the Tzemach Tzedek, which is printed in the back of Torah on page 278, where he explains the at least first half of the Amud of the mimer. So this mimer is explaining the idea of levushim. We said in the previous mimer, Avram Zakin Baba Yamim, that Avraham was old, coming in days. And so the Zohar asked, what does it mean he was old and coming in days? If he was old and he had many days. So it doesn't mean actual days, it means garments of the soul, which is revelations from Hashem, which day means light, which is revelation. And so the garments of the soul is also a kind of revelation. So this mimer is explaining the idea of the garments of the soul, and how the idea of Torah mitzvahs is to elevate these garments from klipa, from unholiness, and bring them up, that they should be to the original source and connect you to Hashem. And the contrast between that and elevating the shamas that fell into klipa. In other words, to explain the idea of mevar the levushim and the mevar the shamas, to elevate and refine the garments of the soul and the actual souls. And in order to explain that, we have to explain the idea of Adam Harishon in Gan Eden. So we'll read a little bit and then we'll explain. It says, Ayin Eitz Chaim Shar Mem Tes Perakei Nimtza Elu HaLevushim Elu Levushim on Iskarim Parshas Vayechi Ein Per Shenasim Echad Shetermit says Amna Misparim Chulu. So in Eitz Chaim it says the Levushim, which is mentioned in Parshas Vayechi in the Zohar, that it says that every Yid has garments of the soul, which that's the term, the mitzvahs that they're doing throughout their lifetime. So ein pirush shenasim echadash she'ter mitzvahs. It's not that they're completely new. In other words, these garments of the soul, which is the term mitzvahs that Yid has to do, it's not a completely new thing. Amna misbarim chulu. Rather, they came from somewhere else and they fell into klipa, and you're elevating them. So where did they coming from? Why are they old? Because Adam Harishon in Gan Eden, he had garments for his soul. And those garments that Adam Harishon had in Gan Eden included all the Torah and the mitzvahs of all the Yidden throughout all the generations. That was his garments that he had in Atzilus. It says that Adam Harishon was in Atzilus, and his neshama was from Zah, was from Zeir Anpin, and he had all the levushim, he had all the Torah and the mitzvahs from all the Yidden till the end of time were included in his garments, just like our garments, Torah mitzvahs. So he had all of them in his soul, and through the Chelei Tzadas, through the sin of the tree of knowledge. So all the garments that he had included in him fell into klipa, and when you do Torah mitzvahs, you elevate those garments from Adam Harishon, from the part of your soul, the way that your soul is included in Adam Harishon, that they should go back to holiness, to their source in Bina and Keser Atzilus. V'ayin Shar Chavav Sof Perek Aleph Rak Lahamshich Al Sakin Chulu Dugma Golos HaShechina Chulu. What does it say in Shar Chavav of Eitz Chaim Perek Aleph? That the idea of Torah mitzvahs is to draw down light, to draw down from Hashem's will and wisdom, from higher than its hills, from Keser, into these garments from Adam Harishon that fell down into Klipa. Just like the Shechina, Malchus of Atzilus, goes into Biyah, goes into the created worlds to elevate them, so too the fact that your neshama comes into this world is to elevate those garments that fell from Adam Harishon, that they should return to holiness. So really your neshama is just on a shlichus. It's not coming to fix out your neshama. The neshama atzma ein tzricha tikun. The soul itself doesn't need to be fixed up. It's just in order to elevate those garments that fell into klipa. So now the Alter Rebbe asks a question on this. But it says in Eitz Chaim Shalamates, that the Nefesh Ruach Neshama of Yidden is elevated through davening. So, is it that the soul itself doesn't need to be fixed up? It's just on a shlichus? Or does the soul need to be fixed up? And that's through davening. And through davening, you're able to elevate the neshamas from that fell into klipa. So which is it? Is your neshama need to be fixed or doesn't need to be fixed? So the Alter Rebbe answers, Hainabal yasam in a klipa is man the nukva dezah. That means, if they fell into klipa, into unholiness, the way to elevate them from klipa is through davening. Avol yiridasan misham la'olam hazeh begufa chumri lekaim Torah mitzvos masiyos v'lo tefillah vada. But when they originally came down into this world, into the physical body, in order to do Torah mitzvos, it was in order to fix up the garments, in order to fulfill Torah mitzvos, and not just davening. V'lo tefillah vada dirabanan. Not just davening, which is Dirabanan. What is Alter Rebbe saying by Dirabanan? Meaning, your main obligation in this world is to learn Torah and do mitzvahs. And even though for sure you have to daven, but the more important is the idea of Torah mitzvahs. And that's why davening is called Dirabanan, meaning it's not the top priority. Even though obviously it has very big accomplishment, we're going to say it can elevate all the neshamas, all the klipa, and all these things. But the main thing is the Torah and the mitzvahs that you do in this world. Why? Because the fact that your soul came into this world is like the Shekhinah, the Malchus of Tzidk coming into this world, which is to elevate those garments that fell. In other words, only your soul has the power to elevate those garments which are relevant to you. That all the souls are an extension of the soul of Adam HaRishon, and only that specific soul that's coming from Adam HaRishon has the power to elevate those garments which were originally connected to him from the way he was included in Adam HaRishon, and then they fell into klipa, and only your soul has the power to elevate those garments back into holiness. Whereas, like we're going to explain, to elevate souls that fell into klipa, other people could also do. So therefore, it's not so much a personal obligation. And that's why it's a greater obligation on your own nefesh ruach neshama, on your soul, to elevate those garments that fell down into holiness, because no one else can do it. Only your soul can elevate those garments. Whereas to elevate the souls that fell into klipa, other people can also do that. In other words, the idea of elevating souls from klipa could be accomplished through other people and through tzaddikim, through their davening. So even though your davening also is very important, but you're not the only one who can elevate that, and it's mainly tzaddikim through their davening. Whereas to elevate the garments is only you. You're the only one who can elevate those garments. That according to the greatness of the mitzvah that Yid does and that tzaddikim do, they're able to elevate those souls from klipa. To elevate it back to Malchus of Atzilus. So that's what it says over there in Eitz Chaim. So too it says over there in Pri Eitz Chaim that through mitzvahs and davening you're able to elevate the souls that fell into klipa. And this that it says specifically through davening is because to elevate souls that fell into klipa is mainly through davening more than through mitzvahs. In other words, the main idea of mitzvahs is to elevate the garments that fell into klipa, and the main idea of davening is to elevate the neshamas that fell into klipa. Hainu k'mash kaseh Eitz Chaim shar mehem dush gimel shatfilah b'pnimis v'mitzvah b'chatzon etzaf pishish b'hem b'chenes mochen chulayin sham. This is what it says in Eitz Chaim, that davening is mainly in pnimis. Just like what's the idea of davening? It's your understanding and your awareness of Hashem. So through your awareness of Hashem, through your avanira, you're able to elevate those neshamas which are pnimis oilamos from klipa. Whereas mitzvahs is an action, which is something you do outside of you, and so that's able to elevate the garments. V'hilkoch zivug zon. Lanasa iman mea mitzvahs. K'mash k'tam mitzvahs. B'sef ha'akdama hu b'chatzenis b'mitzvahs masiyas. And that's why, to elevate these garments, to make the yichud of zon, is mainly through actual doing the mitzvahs in action. Ma'ashakat beitz chaim sharlam mites or sharlam meches through aleph base ayit fil davka. And this that it says that it's mainly through davening. Hainu man atzman denukva shnafel klipas b'chayim rishon v'lo yanashamas shoyu kavar b'anam harishon. What it means is the neshamas which fell into klipa through chayim enam harishon, but not the neshamas which were already included in enam harishon. El oisin shalom nichlu boy. It means a higher level of neshamas that were never included in him. V'hin b'chinas biyash lifnei achid, k'mashkaseh b'gulgulim perik zayin, which is the idea of bri yitzir and asiyah of atzilus before the chayda yitzadas. K'mashkaseh b'gulgulim perik zayin. But also shnichla boy mehem mamshichem roi b'nei adam k'ma kulam. K'mashkaseh perik yidal. V'hainu idea zivug shu mitzvahs periyaviyah k'mashkaseh sham perik beis. So we're saying is like this, that there's three ideas. There's neshamas which were included in Adam Harishon. There's neshamas that were not originally included in Adam Harishon. And there's the garments of Adam Harishon. So the neshamas which were never included in Adam Harishon, originally, when they come down into this world and they fall into Klippa, because the whole world is full of Klippa, so in order to elevate them is only through davening. The neshamas which were included in Adam Harishon, but then through Chayei Tzadas fell into Klippa, since they're on a lower level, so they can be elevated through mitzvahs and davening, through both. But the garments of Adam Harishon, which that's the mitzvahs, that's the source of the mitzvahs that we're doing, they can only be elevated through actual mitzvahs masiyas, through actually doing mitzvahs. And so that's the idea. That's where most of our neshamas are coming from, the neshamas which were originally included in Adam Harishon, and that's why they could be elevated even through an action of the mitzvah, even without davening. And that's why the neshamas are coming down through a specific mitzvah, which is the first mitzvah in the Torah. And even if he doesn't have kavanah, fine, sham. Achar sof perk lamed hey bekesher hachavirim shekol neshama b'liyasam aklipas tzarich lisapachos mem yom b'malchus v'hainu she'oil l'shem laman ayim mitzvah zivug v'af mi she'ena miskaven the mitzvah yuchal lahamshich chayis min l'mayla k'mash kasem k'ut Torah pasuk yidei lechem levar yichechulu k'moy she'alechem mechayet gam kasher echa b'lei bracha ka'achilas akum chulu ayin sham. So it says like this. Just like a person, when he eats, it gives life to his neshama, even though he doesn't have kavanah, because the fact that he does the action of eating includes in it the life of Hashem, which is in that food. So even though when he makes a bracha, then the life force from Hashem is more revealed. But even if he doesn't make a bracha, still the fact is that there's a life from Hashem, which is in that food, which he's connected to by eating to it. And that's why even a goy gets life when he eats. So the same thing when you do a mitzvah, lahavdil or not lahavdil, when you do a mitzvah, the fact that you do the mitzvah, that makes the accomplishment, even though you don't have kavanah for the mitzvah. Just the fact that Yid puts on tefillin, that accomplishes that he's elevating the tefillin, he's elevating himself, he's elevating the whole world to Hashem, just through the action of the mitzvah, even if he doesn't have kavanah. And that's why a Yid, when he gets married, and he has children, even if he doesn't have so much kavanah, he didn't learn the whole Reshis Chachma Ba'peh, or whatever it is, the fact that he's doing the mitzvah, that's able to draw down the neshamas from into this world and elevate them from Klippa, elevate those neshamas from Klippa to Malchus Avatzilus, and then they should come back down into this world, into a physical body, even if they didn't have so much kavanah, because the fact that doing the mitzvah itself makes that accomplishment. The fact that they had the chasana according to halacha and everything, that itself makes that accomplishment. Because regarding elevating these neshamas, which are already included in Adam Harishon, the main thing is the action. Tikun ubir mad davka kibedachar levada yishba koyach levar k'mashkatz be'pritz chayim shar aleph hirkvov. So this power to elevate from Klippa is dependent mainly on Zeranpin, on the level which is called the Mashpia, the one who's giving, because he's the only one who has the power to elevate. Why? So, Bekitzer, there's Zah and there's Malchus. Malchus is the level of Hashem, the way that he's come down to create and give life to the world directly. Whereas Zah is like Hashem's midas, Hashem's attributes, which are more the way that Hashem relates to himself. They're Hashem's kindness, Hashem's severity. Whereas Malchus is the way that Hashem gives outside of himself. So in order to elevate something from this world, you need a level which is higher than the world. Right? It says, Ein chavush matis atzmoi. Someone who's in jail can't free himself from the inside. Only someone who's outside of the jail can free him. So only from a level which is higher than the world can you elevate those things which fell into klipa and unholiness in this world. And that's why only from Zah, which is higher than being directly involved with the world, can you elevate the garments and the souls which fell into klipa. And so too, to elevate the lavushim, which is the mitzvahs, which through the doing the mitzvahs is only through Zah. So both the neshamas and the lavushim can only be elevated through Zeranpin, through this level which is higher than being directly involved with the world. Which that's through drawing down light from above, which is called the 5 kindnesses from Zah, which that's the idea of Zah, which means the 248 mitzvahs. When you're doing these 248 mitzvahs, you're drawing down light from Zah, from this level which is higher than being directly involved with the world. And through that, you're able to elevate those garments from unholiness. So it says in Eitz Chaim, it says these garments of the soul are like a garment, a pneumistic garment, which encompasses the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. And the makif, an outer covering, which is called the chashmal, is elevated, is nisbar of an iskan. So we're saying that there's 2 levels of garments. One is called Salam and one is called Chashmal, which we don't really have time to explain the difference in Salam and Chashmal, but these are 2 types of garments.
What's
Salam. This one is called Salam and one is called Chashmal. 2 types of garments. Masha Kasa Bashar Chavav Perak Aleph Shatsalam Hapnimi who have the garmi. Fu Chaysem or Levush Netza Choyd Yisod Abavima Kamash Kasa Perak Beis Sham. Shneim or Echanheim. Zepnimi V'Zemakif Kamash Kasa Perak Beis Sham. So, Alter is just explaining that these 2 levels called Salam and Chashmal aren't completely separate. They're really 2 aspects of the same type of garment. In other words, the idea of Torah mitzvahs is like the garments of the soul, but the inner garment is called Salam and the outer garment is called Chashmal. Lion Shalom Atesru Shubeis Vizel Levush Nikra Chulu Levush Zeh Chulu Alasman Mainukim Chulu Gor Chulu Lion Shar Chashmal Perak Aleph Nikra Klipas Niga Nikra Chashmal Chulu Return Loimar Return Loimar Kamash Katsiv Sham B'Seif Perak Kol HaChashmalim Hu B'Chinas Toiv Shebeklipas Niga Chulu V'Ayin Mikdash Melech Bereshis Tavkuf Beis Afamad Beis Shegimel Chashmalim Naflu B'Niga Ayidei Chedam Harishin. So all the different levels of the garments fell down through the sin of Adam Rishon. Vayan Shar Chashmal Perak Aleph Kfi Knisas HaKelim the Tivuna B'Pnim Kim B'Chinas Shalom Milubash Mibachutz Cholu Ayin Sham Shkal Tikkun Hu Lidchois HaChetzanim Al Yedei Or HaBina Mifnim Mibachutz. So in other words, all these garments, they're coming from a level called Bina Vatzilus. Like we explained before in the Maimer of Yivdila Parichas Lachem, that this separation between the different levels and the garments is coming from a level called Chitzonius Bina, which is Tivuna, and that's the Chashmal. In other words, like we said, that a mashal, in order to explain an idea to someone on a much lower level, you need to use an analogy, because the analogy comes from a very deep level of his intellect, and it's able to cover over and bring down this intellect to a lower level, to a student who's not on the level of the teacher. That's the idea of analogy. So where does this analogy comes from? It comes from your intellect, from a deeper part of your intellect. So the garment for your intellect comes from the deeper part of your intellect. The same thing, the garments of the souls, which that's Torah mitzvahs, comes from Bina, from Hashem's, the deepest part of Hashem's understanding. That's the one level. Really, mitzvahs come from much higher. They come from Kesef, from Hashem's will. But on a more revealed level, the garments of the soul, the garments of the soul come from Bina, which is the idea of Moyach Tevuna, which that's this idea of the Tzelem and the Chashmal. וקרוב לומר שמבפנים הוא על ידי מצוות שבדיבור ומבחוץ על ידי מצוות מעשיות שהחיצוניס נקרא מקיף לגבי פנימיס כמו שקורא זה בית חיים סוף פרק בייס גבי חש. So we're saying this. These two aspects of mitzvahs is called Tzelem and Chashmal, and in order to elevate these two garments which Adam Rishon had is through two types of mitzvahs. Through mitzvahs which are dependent on speech, which that's a mitzvah saying Kriyas Shema and Birkas Hamazon and Talmud Torah. So that's how you elevate the inner garments. Just like speaking is a higher level than action. So through the mitzvahs which are dependent on speaking, you elevate the higher level of garments of Adam HaRishon, which that's called Tzelem. And through the mitzvahs which are dependent on action, like putting on tefillin and lulav, so you're able to elevate the lower level of garments, which is called Chashmal, which were originally Adam HaRishon had, and that part of your soul also had from the way you was included in Adam HaRishon. So the point of all this is that through the Torah and the mitzvahs, you elevate the garments from Adam HaRishon that fell into Klippa, and through davening, in general, it elevates neshamas that fell into Klippa. But there's some neshamas that you're elevated both through davening and through Torah. But Hashem continue tomorrow this idea.